The Imperial ship arrived without warning. It tore through space like a knife, cutting silk, its massive hull blocking out the stars. The ship was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. Black metal scales covered its surface, each one perfectly fitted to the next. Red lights glowed from within, making it look like a giant beast with fire in its belly. Emperor Karos stood at the observation window and watched the small station grow larger. Outpost Helix 9 looked like a toy compared to his ship. It was a simple wheel-shaped structure spinning slowly in the darkness. Docking arms reached out like spider legs. Solar panels caught the light from a distant sun. The Emperor was old. Not old like humans measured age, but truly ancient. He had lived for 3,000 years. His scales were deep purple, almost black, and they shimmered when he moved. His eyes were golden and saw everything. He had watched civilizations rise and fall. He had conquered 200 worlds. Nothing surprised him anymore, or so he thought. The docking was smooth and silent. Karos did not announce his arrival. He wanted to see the station as it really was, not as his staff would prepare it for him. He wore a simple cloak that hid his royal markings. His guards stayed on the ship. He walked alone into the station. The first thing he noticed was the noise. Alarms were ringing. Red warning lights flashed in the corridors. The air smelled wrong, like hot metal and ozone. Something was burning somewhere. This was not how an Imperial facility should operate. A Draconis officer ran past him without even looking. The officer's scales were pale green and slick with sweat. Fear rolled off him in waves that Karos could smell. Behind the officer, two more Draconis stumbled along, carrying equipment boxes. They looked panicked. Karos followed the sounds of chaos. He moved through the corridors like a shadow. His training from centuries ago came back to him. Move quietly. Observe first. Strike only when necessary. The main control room was a disaster. Half the screens were dark. The other half showed red error messages. 3 Draconis operators sat at their stations, but they were not working. They were arguing with each other, voices rising to shouts. One of them threw his hands up and walked away from his console. And in the middle of all this chaos stood a human. The human was young, maybe 25 by their short-lived measure. He was small compared to the Draconis, barely reaching their shoulders. His skin was tan, his hair black and messy. He wore the gray uniform of a servant, marked with yellow stripes that showed he worked in maintenance, but he was not acting like a servant. The human moved from console to console with quick, sure steps. His hands flew over the controls. He spoke in a calm voice that somehow cut through all the noise. Wujin, reroute power from Sector 7 to the medical bay. They need life support now. The human did not shout. He did not panic. He simply stated what needed to be done. Another human, this one older with gray in his hair, nodded and ran to a different console. Karos watched as this second human's fingers danced across the keys. Within seconds, a red light on the main board turned green. Hannah, we have a coolant leak in Engineering Section 3. Can you seal it remotely? The first human was already moving to the next problem before he finished speaking. Female human voice came through the speakers. On it, Doyan. Give me 30 seconds. Diane. So that was the young human's name. Karos filed it away in his perfect memory. Emperor Karos moved closer, staying in the shadows near the door. He wanted to see more. The Draconis operators were useless. One of them had given up entirely and was sitting on the floor. But these humans were solving problems faster than they appeared. Reactor temperature is rising. One of the Draconis finally called out. His voice shook with fear. We need to initiate emergency shutdown. Diane turned to look at the speaker. No, if we shut down now, we lose all power. Medical has 12 patients in surgery. They will die. Better 12 than hundreds. The Draconis shouted back. If the reactor goes critical, it will destroy the entire station. Karos found himself leaning forward. What would the human do? It was a classic command decision. Sacrifice the few to save the many. Every commander learned this lesson. The Emperor himself had made such choices thousands of times. Doyen stared at the reactor display for 3 full seconds. His face was calm, but Karos could see the tension in his shoulders. Then the human smiled. It was a small smile, almost sad. There's always another option, Doyen said quietly. He turned to the older human. Woojin, can you manage the power grid alone for 5 minutes? Yes. Good. I am going to the reactor room. I will fix it manually. The Draconis operator stood up. That is impossible. The radiation levels are too high. You will die in 2 minutes. Then I better work fast. Doyen was already moving toward the door. He grabbed a radiation suit from the wall locker as he passed. Keep the coolant flowing as long as you can. I will send updates every 30 seconds. If I stop talking, seal the reactor room and let it shut down. Karos stepped out of the shadows and blocked the door. The human nearly crashed into him, then stopped and looked up. And up. Even in his cloak, the Emperor stood nearly 8 feet tall. Excuse me, Doyen said politely. I need to pass. You will die, Karos said. He wanted to see how the human would respond to truth. Doyen nodded. Maybe, but maybe not. I will not know unless I try. He paused, then added, and 12 people will definitely die if I do nothing. I choose maybe over definitely. The human's eyes were dark brown and completely calm. He was not being brave. He was not trying to impress anyone. He had simply done the math and decided that his possible death was worth 12 certain lives. Karos stepped aside. He followed at a distance as Doyen ran through the corridors. The human pulled on the radiation suit as he moved, never slowing down. By the time they reached the reactor room door, Doyen was fully sealed in the bulky protective gear. The door opened with a hiss. Heat and light poured out. Karos could see the reactor core glowing angry red through the small window. The radiation counter on the wall was screaming. Numbers rose higher and higher. Doyen stepped inside. The door sealed behind him. Karos moved to the window and watched. The human ran to a control panel and opened it. Inside was a mess of wires and circuits. Doyen pulled out a small tool and started working. His movements were fast but not rushed, precise, confident. Woojin, I need 10% more coolant flow. Doyen's voice came through the speaker. Calm, steady. You have it. Thank you. Temperature is dropping. I see the problem. Someone crossed 2 circuits during the last maintenance. I am fixing it now. Karos counted the seconds. 2 minutes passed. 3, 4. The radiation counter was still screaming. No living thing should survive this long in that room. But the human kept working. At 5 minutes and 12 seconds. The reactor's angry red glow faded to a soft orange. The temperature readings began to drop. The alarms stopped ringing. Fixed, Doyen said. Bringing the reactor back to normal operation. Woojin, you can restore full power to all systems. The human walked out of the reactor room 3 minutes later. He pulled off his helmet and took a deep breath. His face was covered in sweat. His hands shook slightly. But he was smiling. Is medical okay? Doyen asked. All patients are stable, Woojin answered. The older human was smiling too. Doyen nodded and sat down on the floor. Just sat right there in the middle of the corridor and leaned his head back against the wall. His eyes closed. Emperor Karos stood over him and studied this strange creature. A human, a servant, a conquered being from a defeated world. This human had just done what trained Draconis engineers would hesitate to attempt. The Emperor had come to inspect the facility, but he had found something much more interesting. He had found a question that needed answering. What else could humans do that his empire did not know about? Karas decided to stay longer than planned. Much longer. He wanted to know everything about these creatures. Starting with the one sitting on the floor in front of him, whose name was Doyen. The alarm woke everyone at 3 in the morning, station time. It was not the usual maintenance alarm or the gentle chime of a shift change. This was the high-pitched scream that meant immediate danger. Red lights flashed in every corridor. The station's computer voice spoke in calm, measured tones that somehow made the message worse. Hull breach in Section 7. Hull breach in Section 12. Hull breach in Section 4. Reactor power fluctuating. Life support compromised in 3 sectors. All personnel report to emergency stations. Karas was already awake and moving. He accessed the station sensors through his personal device. What he saw made even his ancient heart beat faster. A cloud of micrometeors, thousands of tiny rocks traveling at incredible speed, had hit the station. They were too small for long-range sensors to detect, but large enough to punch through the outer hull in multiple places. The station was dying, and it was happening fast. The Emperor moved toward the control room but stopped when he heard running footsteps. Humans, all 16 of them, were racing through the corridors, pulling on emergency suits as they moved. Dayan was in the lead, his face set and focused. Wujin, take Hana and Ji Wu to Section 7. Seal that breach from the inside if you can. Minsiok, you and Bora handle Section 12. I will take Section 4. Dayan was giving orders as he ran, his voice cutting through the alarm noise. What about the reactor? Hana called out. Hyunwoo and Sungjin, you are with me. We go to the reactor first. The humans split into teams without argument or hesitation. They knew their jobs. They trusted their assignments. Within 90 seconds of the alarm starting, every human was in position. The 12 Draconis operators stumbled into the control room in confusion. Celeris tried to take charge, but her voice shook. We need to. We should. Where is the emergency manual? One of the junior technicians was already accessing the computer. The manual says we should evacuate to the emergency pods and wait for rescue. How long until rescue arrives? Celeris asked. Minimum 6 hours, maybe longer. Then we evacuate. Give the order. But another Draconis, a young male named Corthan, was watching the sensor displays. The humans are not evacuating. They are moving toward the breaches. They are servants. They do not understand the danger. Someone called them back. Karos watched this and said nothing. He wanted to see what would happen. Would the Draconis leaders stop the humans from trying, or would they let them work? In Section 4. Dayan reached the breach site with Hyunwoo and Sungjin right behind him. The corridor was a mess. A hole the size of a human head punched through the outer hull. Air was screaming out into space. The emergency door had sealed automatically, but it was a thin barrier. One more hit in this section would tear it open completely. We cannot seal this from inside, Hyunwoo said, shouting over the noise. He was a stocky man with strong arms and quick hands. We need to patch it from outside. Then we go outside, Doyen said. He was already pulling on a full spacesuit from the emergency locker. Hyunwoo and Sungjin did the same in the control room. Corthan reported this to the others. 3 humans are preparing to go outside the station. During a meteor shower. Celeris stared at the screen in disbelief. That is suicide. The meteors are still active. They will be hit. Should we stop them? How? We cannot reach them by communication. And even if we could, they are already in their suits. Karos moved to a better viewing position. He wanted to see this clearly. 3 humans were about to risk their lives in a way that would terrify most Draconis soldiers. And they were doing it without orders, without permission, without any promise of reward. The airlock cycled. Doyun, Yunwoo, and Sungjin stepped out into space. The view from their helmet cameras appeared on screens in the control room. Karos watched along with the Draconis operators. The three humans moved along the outside of the station, using magnetic boots and safety lines. Stars wheeled above them. The void stretched infinitely in all directions. "I see the breach," Doyen said calmly. His voice came through the communication system. "It is bigger than I thought. We will need 2 patches." "I have them," Sungjin replied. He carried a bag of emergency repair materials. They worked in silence for several minutes. Doyon held the first patch in place, while Hyunwoo welded it to the hull using a portable torch. The work was slow and precise. Any mistake could tear their suits or break their equipment. Then Corthan, watching the sensors in the control room, saw something terrible. "More meteors incoming. Impact in 40 seconds. Celeris grabbed the communication panel. Humans outside returned to the station immediately. "More meteors are coming." Doyen's voice came back steady and calm. "How long until impact?" 35 seconds. "We need 40 seconds to finish this patch. If we leave now, the breach stays open and this entire section will be lost." "Better to lose 1 section than 3 lives. We disagree." Dayan turned to his companions. "Faster, please." "We have 30 seconds." Hyunwoo did not argue. His welding torch moved quicker, but his hand stayed steady. Sungjin positioned the second patch. Doyan held it in place. The weld began. Karos counted the seconds in his head. 20, 15, 10. The Draconis operators were frozen, watching the screens. Some had covered their eyes. Celeris was praying to her gods. 5 seconds. The weld completed. Dayan tested it with a quick pull. It held. Done. Moving to the airlock now. The 3 humans kicked off from the hull and flew toward the entrance. 2 seconds later, the sensors showed impacts. Small meteors struck the station in multiple places. Most bounced off the reinforced hull, but one hit exactly where the 3 humans had been standing moments before. It would have killed them all. The airlock cycled. The inner door opened. Dayan, Yunwoo, and Sungjin stepped back into the station and pulled off their helmets. They were smiling. "Section 4 is sealed," Doyun reported to no one in particular. "Where do you need us next?" In the control room, Celeris sat down heavily. Her legs had stopped working. Corthan just stared at the screens, but there was no time to rest. The station was still in crisis. The reactor was failing. Life support was down in 3 sections, and the other human teams needed help. Doyen ran toward the reactor room. Hyunwoo and Sungjin followed. They found the door sealed with warning signs flashing. Radiation levels were rising inside. The reactor was beginning to overheat again. "This is familiar," Dayun said with a slight smile. He had been in this situation before, but this time it was worse. The reactor had taken damage from the meteor impacts. The cooling system was partially destroyed. "I cannot go in alone this time," Doyen said. "The damage is too widespread. I will need help." Hyunwoo stepped forward immediately. "I will go with you." "So will I," Sungjin added. "The radiation will kill all 3 of us if we stay too long." Both men nodded. They understood. They chose to help anyway. The 3 humans pulled on radiation suits that would buy them a few minutes of protection. Not much, but hopefully enough. They entered the reactor room together. Karos moved to the observation window. He had to see this. 3 humans working in a room that was slowly killing them. They split up, each taking a different part of the damaged cooling system. They worked without speaking much. Hand signals and short phrases. They had trained together and trusted each other completely. 5 minutes passed. The radiation counter screamed. The numbers climbed higher and higher. Doyen's voice came through the speaker. Primary coolant line is repaired. Sungjin, how is the pump? Working on it, 2 more minutes. We do not have 2 minutes, Hyunwoo said. His voice was strained now. The radiation was affecting him. Then we work faster, Sungjin replied. His hands moved in a blur. Karos watched the radiation readings. The levels were high enough to kill a Draconis in minutes. For smaller humans with less body mass, it was even worse. They should have been unconscious by now, but they kept working. Pump is functional, Sungjin finally said. Coolant is flowing. Temperature is dropping, Doyen confirmed. Reactor is stabilizing. We need to get out now. The 3 humans staggered out of the reactor room. They pulled off their helmets and leaned against the wall. Their faces were pale. Sweat covered their skin. Hyunwoo vomited. Sungjin's hands shook so badly he could barely hold onto the helmet, but they had done it. The reactor was safe. Doyen looked at his 2 friends. Thank you. I could not have done this alone. We are human, Hyunwoo said, wiping his mouth. We do not leave each other behind. We do not abandon the task. This is who we are. Karos heard these words and felt something shift inside his ancient chest. For 3,000 years, he had believed that the strong survived by being stronger than everyone else. That civilization was built on hierarchy and power. But these humans showed him something different. They were strong because they shared their strength. They survived because they protected each other. The crisis lasted 6 more hours. By the time it ended, all breaches were sealed. All systems were functioning. And every single human was still alive, though many needed medical treatment for radiation exposure and exhaustion. The Draconis operators had done little except watch and report. They had followed procedures and waited for rescue that never came. If the station had depended on them alone, it would have been destroyed, but the humans had saved it. 16 servants, working without authority or recognition, had accomplished what trained Draconis engineers would. Emperor Karos spent the next 3 days watching. He moved through the station like a ghost, observing everything. The station had 52 Draconis staff and 16 human servants. The Draconis gave orders. The humans obeyed. This was how the Empire worked. This was the natural order. But Karos kept thinking about what he had seen in the reactor room. That human Doyen had not asked permission. He had not waited for orders. He had seen a problem and fixed it. The Draconis operators had panicked while the human had stayed calm. It made no sense. Humans were supposed to be weak, emotional. They needed strong leadership from superior races. Every report said so. Every study confirmed it. The war had proven it. Earth had fallen in 6 months. Yet that human had walked into deadly radiation without fear. The Emperor needed to understand. So he decided to test them. On the 4th morning, he summoned Commander Volrath to his private quarters. The commander was a career officer, scales dark red with age. He had run Outpost Helix 9 for 8 years. You and your senior staff will take immediate leave, Karos said. Volrath's eyes went wide. Your Majesty? I do not understand. Have we failed in some way? No, this is not punishment. Consider it a vacation. 2 weeks, starting immediately. Take your officers and scientists. Leave the junior staff and the humans. But that will leave only 12 Draconis operators on the station. And 16 humans. We need at least 40 staff to run this facility safely. Then, the remaining staff will have to work harder. Karos folded his hands. My word is final. You depart in 3 hours. Volrath knew better than to argue with an emperor. He bowed and left. Within 2 hours, transport ships arrived. The commander and 32 senior Draconis staff packed their belongings and departed. They looked confused but relieved. A vacation was a vacation, even a strange one. Karos watched from the observation deck as the transport ships vanished into faster-than-light travel. Now the real test would begin. The 12 remaining Draconis were all young, junior technicians and entry-level operators. They had always taken orders from their superiors. Now those superiors were gone. Karos monitored their communications and watched their faces. Confusion, fear, uncertainty. One of them, a green-scaled female named Celrus, tried to take command. She gathered the others in the control room. "We must establish a chain of command," she said. Her voice trembled slightly. "I am the most senior here, so I will serve as acting commander. You will all report to me." The others nodded. They looked happy to have someone telling them what to do. But Karos could see the problem already. Celrus had no idea how to run a station. She was a communications technician, not a commander. She was pretending to be confident, but her fear smell filled the room. The humans were not included in this meeting. They were servants. They were not expected to have opinions about command structure. Karos wondered if they even knew the senior staff had left. He found Doyan 2 hours later in one of the maintenance tunnels. The human was replacing air filters, a dirty job that required crawling through narrow spaces. His gray uniform was covered in dust. "The Draconis commanders have all left the station," Karos said. He still wore his concealing cloak. To Doyan, he was just another tall figure in the shadows. Doyan paused in his work and looked back. "I know. Wujin told me this morning. They took 3 transport ships. Does this concern you?" The human shrugged. "Not really. The work is still the same. Filters still need changing. Pipes still need fixing. The station does not care who is in command. What if something goes wrong? An emergency?" Doyan smiled. "Then we will fix it. Same as always." He went back to his work, dismissing the conversation as unimportant. Karos found this response fascinating. The human had no fear of being left without supervision. He simply focused on the task in front of him. The first day without senior staff was quiet. The junior Draconis stuck to their regular duties. The humans did the same. Everything ran normally. Karos began to wonder if his test would show anything at all. The second day brought the first problem. One of the agricultural domes lost temperature control. The plants inside needed very specific conditions. If the temperature dropped too much, an entire season of food production would be lost. Celrus, the acting commander, called an emergency meeting of the Draconis staff. Karos listened through the station's communication system. "The control unit is broken," one technician reported. "We need a replacement part, but we do not have it in storage. The nearest supply depot is 3 days away." "Then we order a new part and wait," Celrus said. "The plants will die in 1 day. Maybe less." Silence filled the room. No one knew what to do. They were trained to follow procedures, and the procedure said to order the part and wait for it to arrive. "We could ask the humans," someone suggested quietly. "They work on the environmental system sometimes." "Humans are servants, not engineers," Celrus snapped. "They cannot solve technical problems." Karos almost revealed himself right then. He wanted to order them to ask the humans for help, but he held back. This was a test. He needed to see what would happen naturally. What happened was that nothing happened. The Draconis operators kept trying to find a solution in their manuals and databases. They argued about procedures. They waited for inspiration that never came. Meanwhile, Hana had heard about the problem. She was one of the human servants assigned to maintenance. She found Doyan in the mess hall during his meal break. "The agriculture dome is dying," she told him. "The Draconis cannot fix it." Doyan put down his food. "Did they ask us for help?" "No. Then we should not interfere. We are servants. We stay in our place." But even as he said this, His eyes moved toward the exit. His fingers tapped the table. Hannah sat down across from him. Remember what your grandmother used to say? We are human. We fix things. That is what we do. Dion was quiet for a long moment. Then he stood up. Come on. Let us go look at the problem. Just look. We will not touch anything unless they ask. Karas followed them to the agricultural dome. He watched as Doyen studied the broken control unit. The human pulled out a small light and peered inside the mechanism. His face showed deep concentration. Can you fix it? Hannah asked. Maybe. The main circuit board is burned out. But I think I can take parts from 3 other systems and build a replacement. It will not be perfect, but it will work until the real part arrives. Do it. Without permission? Hannah looked at the dying plants around them. Tall stalks that were already starting to droop. Leaves turning yellow at the edges. Sometimes permission comes too late. Dion nodded slowly. He called 2 other humans on his communication device. Minziok and Bora arrived within 5 minutes, carrying toolboxes. We're going to save this dome, Doyen told them. We might get in trouble for it later. But the plants matter more than our safety. Agreed? Both humans nodded without hesitation. Karos watched them work. They did not follow a procedure manual. They did not argue about the correct method. Diane explained what he needed. Minziok ran to pull parts from a water recycling system that had a backup unit. Bora stripped wires from a broken lighting panel. Hannah held tools and offered suggestions. They talked constantly as they worked. But it was different from how the Draconis talked. The humans asked questions. They shared ideas. When Bora suggested a different way to connect 2 circuits, Doyen listened and then tried it her way. It worked better. You are smart, Doyen told her. We all are, Bora replied. We just need to trust each other. 4 hours later, the makeshift control unit powered on. The temperature in the dome began to stabilize. The plants would survive. Du Yun wiped sweat from his forehead and looked at his team. Good work, everyone. Now let us clean up and leave before the Draconis notice we were here. But it was too late for that. Cyrus had been notified by the computer system that the agricultural dome was functioning again. She arrived with 2 other Draconis operators, looking confused and angry. What did you do? She demanded, staring at the humans. Fix the control unit, Doyen said simply. He showed her the makeshift circuit board he had built. This will work until the new part arrives. You had no authorization. You are servants, not technicians. This is a violation of protocol. Doyen met her eyes calmly. Yes, I am sorry for violating protocol. But the plants are alive. The food supply is secure. Punishment can wait until after we have done our jobs. Cyrus opened her mouth to shout more, but then she stopped. What could she say? The human was right. The problem was solved. And if she punished him, she would have to explain to her superiors why she let an entire agricultural dome die when the solution was available. She turned and walked away without another word. Karo smiled in the shadows. The Draconis had followed rules and achieved nothing. The humans had broken rules and saved the station's food supply. More importantly, they had worked as a perfect team. No hierarchy, no command structure, just cooperation toward a common goal. The Emperor had seen enough for day 2. But the test was far from over. He wanted to see how far these humans could go. He wanted to see them pushed to their absolute limit. So he began to plan for a much bigger problem. Something that would require every human on the station to work together. Something that would show him the true nature of these surprising creatures. Day 3 would be very interesting indeed. The medical bay was full. 12 humans lay in beds, receiving treatment for radiation exposure. Their bodies were fighting against the damage, and the human body was surprisingly good at this fight. The doctors, both Draconis and automated systems, had said all 12 would recover fully. It would take time, but they would live. Diane sat beside Hyunwoo's bed. His friend was sleeping, breathing deeply and evenly. The medical computer showed steady readings. Green lights instead of red. Everything was fine now, but Doyun felt tired in a way that sleep could not fix. He had pushed his body to its absolute limit. He had risked his life multiple times. He had asked his friends to do the same. And for what? To save a station owned by their conquerors. To protect the facility of an empire that had taken their home world. Why had he done it? The question turned in his mind like a wheel. Because it was the right thing to do. A deep voice said behind him. Doyun turned and saw a figure in a dark cloak standing in the doorway. The figure was tall, at least 8 feet. The cloak could not completely hide the shimmer of scales underneath. This was a Draconis and a large one. I did not speak out loud, Doyun said carefully. No, but your face showed your thoughts clearly. The figure stepped into the room. Come with me. We need to talk. I should stay with my friend. He is safe. The medical systems will alert you if anything changes. What I have to say is important. More important than you understand. Something in the voice made Doyun stand up. It was not a threat. It was not even really an order. It was more like gravity, pulling him gently but impossibly to resist. He followed the cloaked figure out of the medical bay and through the corridors. They walked in silence until they reached a part of the station Doyun had never entered before. The observation deck. It was a large room with floor-to-ceiling windows looking out at space. The view was beautiful and terrifying. Stars everywhere. The infinite void. Somewhere out there was Earth, though Doyun could not tell which direction. The cloaked figure moved to the center of the room and pulled back his hood. Doyun stopped breathing for a moment. He knew this face. Every human in the empire knew this face. It was shown in every conquered city, carved into every government building. Purple-black scales. Golden eyes that seemed to see through time itself. Features that were beautiful and terrible at once. Emperor Karos. The Dragon Emperor himself. Ruler of 700 star systems. The being who had ordered the conquest of Earth. Doyun did exactly what he had been trained to do. He dropped to one knee and lowered his head. Your Majesty, I apologize for my disrespect. I did not recognize you. Stand up. The Emperor's voice was not unkind. I did not reveal myself because I wanted to see you as you truly are. Not as you pretend to be in front of authority. Doyun stood slowly. His heart was beating fast. Humans who displeased the Emperor did not usually survive the experience. Had he done something wrong? Had his actions during the crisis violated some law he did not know about? You are wondering if you are in trouble, Karos said. Again, reading his face. You are not. Actually, I brought you here to tell you something I have not said in a very long time. The Emperor paused. I was wrong. Doyun blinked. Wrong about what, Your Majesty? About humans. About your species. About everything we believed when we conquered your world. Karos turned to look out at the stars. I have been alive for 3,000 years. I have seen civilizations rise and fall. I have conquered worlds and built empires. I believed I understood how life works in this universe. The strong rule. The weak serve. This is the natural order. The Emperor's reflection in the window showed his face, and Doyun was surprised to see something like sadness there. But then I watched you, Karos continued. I watched you walk into deadly radiation to save people you do not even know. I watched you risk your life in space during a meteor storm. I watched you refuse to give up, even when the logical choice was to abandon the station and save yourself. And I realized that everything I believed was incomplete. I do not understand, Your Majesty. Karos turned to face him directly. Why did you save the station? The truth. I will know if you lie. Dion thought about this carefully. He could give the expected answer. He could say he was serving the Empire, following orders, doing his duty. But the Emperor had asked for truth, and something in those golden eyes made lying impossible. Because people would have died, Doyun said simply. The patients in medical, the staff still on board, even the plants in the agricultural dome. All of them mattered. All of them deserved to live. And if I could save them, then I had to try. Not because anyone ordered me. Not because I would be rewarded. But because it was right. Even though the Empire conquered your world. Even though Draconis like me rule over humans like you? Yes, because the people on this station did not conquer Earth. They are just people doing their jobs. And even if they had conquered Earth, that does not mean they deserve to die. Revenge is not the same as justice. Karos was silent for a long moment. Then he did something that shocked Doyan to his core. The Emperor sat down on the floor, making himself lower than the standing human. It was a gesture of respect that no human had ever seen from a Draconis ruler. Sit, Karos said. Talk to me not as Emperor to servant, but as one thinking being to another. I need to understand your species. Dion sat, though his mind was screaming that this was wrong. You did not sit with emperors. You did not speak to them as equals. But the Emperor had asked, so he obeyed. What do you want to know? How do humans do what you do? Work together without hierarchy? Risk everything for others? Keep trying when failure seems certain? The Draconis believe in strength through dominance. But you show strength through cooperation. How? Dion looked out at the stars while he gathered his thoughts. Earth was a hard world, Your Majesty. Dangerous. Everything wanted to kill us. The weather. The animals. Disease. Starvation. We were small and weak compared to the predators. We had no scales or armor or natural weapons. We should have gone extinct, but you survived. We survived because we had each other. One human alone dies quickly on Earth, but 2 humans can watch each other's backs. 3 can hunt together. 10 can build shelter. 100 can plant crops. 1,000 can build cities. We learned that our survival depended on cooperation. And that lesson was written into our very nature over millions of years. Dion turned to look at the Emperor. We are strong because we had to be. And we learned that strength shared is strength multiplied. When Hyunwoo and Sung Jin came with me into the reactor room, we were not 3 times stronger. We were infinitely stronger, because we trusted each other completely. But you were conquered, Karo said. Earth fell in 6 months. That suggests weakness, not strength. We surrendered because you threatened to destroy our cities. You could have killed billions of humans with your weapons. We looked at the math and realized we could not win a military fight against the Empire. So we chose survival over pride. We surrendered to save lives. And now? Do you hate us for conquering you? Dion was quiet for several heartbeats. This was dangerous territory. But the Emperor had asked for truth. Some humans hate you. Some dream of rebellion. Some want revenge. But most of us just want to survive and protect the people we love. Hatred takes energy. Energy we need for living. And hating all Draconis, because some Draconis conquered us, makes no sense. You are people, just like we are. Some good, some bad, most just trying to do their best. You do not sound like a conquered servant. I am a human, Your Majesty. Conquest does not change that. Slavery does not change that. You can control where I live and what I do, but you cannot control who I am inside. No one can. Taros laughed. It was a strange sound, like distant thunder. 3,000 years, and I have never heard a servant speak to me this way. Any other being would be terrified to be so honest. But you sit here and tell me philosophical truths as if we are friends discussing ideas over drinks. You asked for truth. I gave you truth. If that offends you, then I apologize, but I will not take it back. The Emperor's eyes gleamed with something that might have been approval. Tell me about your grandmother. Earlier, another human mentioned that she used to say something. What was it? She said that humans fix things. That is what we do. We see problems, and we cannot help but try to solve them. Even when the problem is too big. Even when we will probably fail. We fix things because not trying is worse than trying and failing. Wise words. She was wise. She survived the conquest. She survived the early days when we did not know if the Empire would exterminate us or enslave us. She survived by being strong and kind at the same time. She taught me that survival is not enough. We must survive with our humanity intact. Karo stood up, and Doyan stood as well. The Emperor looked down at the human, and his expression was complex. Respect and surprise and something else. Maybe hope. I am going to do something that my council will hate, Karo said. I am going to change how the Empire treats humans. Not immediately. Not completely. But I am going to start. And I need your help. My help? I am just a maintenance worker, Your Majesty. You are much more than that. You are proof that humans are not what we thought. And if one human can do what you did, then imagine what millions could do if given the chance. The Emperor extended his hand, a human gesture. The Grand Council chamber was a circle of power. 50 seats arranged in rings, each occupied by a high-ranking member of the Draconis Empire. Ministers of war, trade, science, and governance. Admirals who commanded fleets. Governors who ruled entire star systems. They were the most powerful beings in 700 worlds, and they all answered to the Emperor. Karo stood at the center of the circle. He had called this emergency session without explanation. The council members whispered to each other, their scales rippling with curiosity and concern. Emergency sessions meant crisis. But the Empire seemed stable. No wars threatened. No rebellions had been reported. What could be wrong? I have spent the last 2 weeks at Outpost Helix 9. Karos began. His voice filled the chamber without effort. I went unannounced. I observed the facility in its natural state. And what I found has forced me to reconsider everything we believe about conquered species. A murmur ran through the council. Minister Draken, an old warrior with deep red scales, spoke first. Your Majesty, we have governed conquered species successfully for centuries. What is there to reconsider? Watch. Karos activated the holographic display at the center of the chamber. Images appeared in the air. Security footage from the station. The council watched as Doyan walked into the reactor room alone. They watched the timer count up while he worked in deadly radiation. They watched him emerge alive, having solved a problem that would have challenged trained engineers. Then more footage. The meteor storm. 3 humans going outside in the middle of the danger. Working while death flew past them. Saving the station at the risk of their own lives. Finally, footage of the aftermath. 16 humans, some barely able to stand from radiation exposure and exhaustion, but all alive. All successful. The station was saved because of them. The council was silent. They had never seen anything like this from conquered peoples. Most conquered species did as little work as possible. They followed orders out of fear, not dedication. They certainly did not risk their lives to save their conqueror's property. This makes no sense, Admiral Thorax said. She commanded the 5th Fleet, and had personally overseen 3 planetary conquests. Humans surrendered in 6 months. They were weak, cowardly. Why would they suddenly act with such courage? They were never cowardly, Karos replied. They surrendered because we threatened to destroy their cities. They chose the survival of their people over military victory. That is not cowardice. That is wisdom. And now we see what they are truly capable of when they choose to act. They are still conquered, Minister Zelthos argued. He oversaw the Empire's slave systems. They have no choice but to obey us. This does not change their status. It changes everything about their status. Karas deactivated the hologram and looked around the circle at each council member. We have classified humans as a Class C species, suitable for manual labor and simple tasks. We believed they needed constant supervision and could not be trusted with important work. These videos prove that classification is completely wrong. He pulled up another display. Statistics and data began to appear. I have spent the last week reviewing records from across the Empire. Every facility with human workers. Every station, every colony, every ship. And I found the same pattern everywhere. When humans are given responsibility, they meet it. When they are given challenges, they solve them. When they are given teammates, they cooperate perfectly. There are also reports of human laziness and poor performance. Minister Draken countered. Yes, in facilities where they are treated as mindless slaves and given no reason to care about their work. In those places, humans do the minimum required. But in facilities where they are treated with basic respect and given meaningful tasks, their performance exceeds that of many Draconis workers. The council erupted into argument. Some agreed with the Emperor. Others denied it was possible. Several demanded more proof. But Karos had expected this. He had prepared for 3,000 years to command this council. He knew how they thought. He let them argue for 5 minutes. Then he raised his hand, and silence fell immediately. I am not here to debate whether humans are capable. The evidence is clear. I am here to inform you of a new imperial decree. The classification of humans is hereby changed from Class C to Class B, with provisional class status available through testing. All humans currently serving in labor positions will be evaluated. Those who demonstrate capability will be offered training and better positions within the Empire. Your Majesty, this is madness. Zelthos stood up, his scales flushing dark with anger. If we elevate conquered peoples, we threaten the entire hierarchy. Other conquered species will demand the same treatment. Then perhaps they should receive it if they earn it. But the Empire is built on strength, on dominance. If we give power to the weak, we make ourselves weak. Karos locked eyes with the minister. His golden gaze was like looking into the sun. You misunderstand the nature of strength, Zelthos. We are strong because we conquer, but we could be stronger if we cooperated. The humans have proven that cooperation multiplies strength. 1 human working alone saved a reactor. 16 humans working together saved an entire station. Imagine what 8 billion humans could accomplish if we gave them reason to work with us instead of for us. Admiral Thorax spoke up. Her voice was thoughtful, not angry. Your Majesty, even if we accept that humans have value, how do we maintain control? If we give them power, what stops them from rebelling? We give them stake in the Empire's success, Karos replied. Right now, humans have no reason to care if the Empire thrives or falls. They are slaves. But if we offer them citizenship, rights, the ability to advance based on merit, then they have reasons to support the Empire. They become partners instead of prisoners. And if they still rebel, then we deal with rebellion as we always have. But I believe most humans will not rebel if given a fair chance at a good life. The human named Doyen told me something important. He said that survival takes all their energy. Hatred and revenge are expensive. Most humans just want to live and protect their families. We can give them that. The debate continued for 3 more hours. Arguments flew back and forth. Some council members supported the emperor's plan. Others opposed it fiercely. But in the end, it did not matter what they thought. The emperor had absolute authority. He was not asking for permission. He was informing them of his decision. The decree was issued the next day. Across the empire, human workers woke to find notices on their communication devices. They were no longer Class C laborers. They had rights now. Limited rights, but real ones. They could not be punished without cause. They could request better positions if they proved themselves capable. They could learn. They could grow. Many humans did not believe it at first. It had to be a trick. But as days passed and the decree remained in effect, hope began to spread. On Outpost Helix 9, Commander Volrath returned from his unexplained vacation to find the station completely changed. The humans were no longer servants. They were provisional technicians. They wore different uniforms with blue stripes instead of yellow. They worked alongside Draconis staff as equals, not subordinates. Volrath was angry until the Emperor explained everything. Then he was simply amazed. He had worked with these humans for months and never realized what they were capable of. Now he saw them with new eyes. Doyan was offered a position as human liaison to the Imperial Court. It was a title that had never existed before. His job was to help the Empire understand humans and help humans understand the Empire. He would travel to different facilities, observe how humans were treated, and report directly to the Emperor. On his first day in his new role, Diane stood in the same observation deck where he had spoken with Kairos. Yunwu stood beside him. His friend had recovered from the radiation exposure and been promoted to senior maintenance engineer. They looked out at the stars together. "Do you think this will work?" Yunwu asked. "Can the Empire really change?" "I do not know," Doyun admitted. "Change is hard. Many Draconis will resist. Many humans will not trust this. It will take years, maybe generations, but it is a start. Yes, it is a start." Diane smiled. "My grandmother used to say that humans fix things. We see problems and we work to solve them. The Empire has a problem. It is wasting the potential of billions of conquered peoples. Now we have a chance to fix that problem. It will not be easy, but easy was never the human way." Word of the decree spread to Earth within a week. Humans there heard that their brothers and sisters in the stars were being given new opportunities. Some were skeptical. Some were angry that it had taken 5 years. But many felt hope for the first time since the conquest. In a small apartment in what used to be called Seoul, an old woman heard the news. She was Doyen's grandmother. She had survived the conquest by being strong and kind. Now she listened to the reports and smiled. "That boy," she said to her neighbor. "I always knew he would do something important. He fixes things. That is what humans do." 3 months later, the first class of human students entered the Imperial Academy. They would study engineering, medicine, science, and governance alongside Draconis students. Many Draconis students protested. Many human students expected to fail. But some from both species looked at each other with curiosity instead of hatred.